A very warm and hearty welcome to this very distinguished gathering, and thank you for joining us today for a very special event. We're all here to celebrate the book release of The Sirens of September, the debut novel of our very own alumna, Ms. Zeenat Khan. We are especially honored to have with us today our esteemed chief guest, Mr. Saad bin Jung. We also extend a warm welcome to our Head of International Curriculum, Ms. Sonali Roy Chaudhry Singh, Head Senior School, Dr. Neeta Bisht, Middle School Coordinator, Mr. K. Ravi, and the Academic Coordinator, Ms. Nasreen Fazal Khan, who worked tirelessly to bring this event to life. Thank you for joining us. A book is more than just pages bound together. It's a piece of the author's soul. And today, we are deeply excited to get a glimpse into the creative mind of Zeenat Khan. Ms. Zeenat is an HPS alumna, batch of 1990, and her creative pursuits have seen fruition in publications like Scroll, Mint Lounge, and Siyasat and the Literary Traveller. Profoundly embedded in historical events and their implications, her writing endeavors have always circled around the past and have aimed at reacquainting the present generation with the bygone era. When she isn't writing, she enjoys reading, baking, and spending time with her friends and 3 grown children. She splits her time between Hyderabad and New York City. Her debut novel, The Sirens of September, is a historical coming-of-age story that transports us back to the pivotal moment in Hyderabad's history, the 1948 takeover by India. It takes us on a thrilling journey from royal palaces to refugee camps, from army command rooms to the streets of London. The story follows a young aristocratic teenager, Farishte Ali Khan, as she navigates international espionage, political intrigue, and long-distance courtship with an Air Force pilot, all while her world is turned upside down. Please give a warm round of applause for our author, Ms. Zeenat Khan.
Thank you for the introduction, Ms. Amin. In my 8 years at HPS, I never stood here and spoke in front of an audience. But I suppose there's a first time for everything. The Sirens of September is a historical coming-of-age novel that tells the tale of Hyderabad's disastrous bid for independence through real and imagined characters. While growing up in Hyderabad during the 1980s, I sensed a certain nostalgia from family elders for the past. It wasn't until much later that I learned of the drama that accompanied Hyderabad's accession to India and realized it had all the ingredients for an interesting novel. A lavish setting, many wayward characters, sinister plots, unending conflict, and the underlying theme of a lost world. At the end of 1946, which is when the Sirens of September begins, the British were poised to leave India and violence engulfed much of the north. Cities smoldered and towns battled each other with brick, stones, and homemade bombs. Blood turned the water of canals a dull red and congealed in parched and abandoned fields. In Hyderabad, however, the nobility carried on as though nothing was about to change. At garden parties, 60-piece orchestras played waltzes and foxtrots. A visiting Englishman compared the mood in Hyderabad to the spring of 1789 at Versailles. He said, and I quote, "The men donned sherwanis of black and gold brocade, and the ladies wore saris of starlit blue and flaming red. Everyone seemed happy, witty, and amused." I'm going to read a passage from The Sirens of September that takes place on New Year's Eve 1946. It features my protagonist Farishte and her brother Zain. Zain and I stood with our hands on the railing and gazed up at the winter black sky. Around us there was nothing but wilderness, ancient rocks, and the dwelling of the Banjara tribe. You had to drive down a kacha road to reach the closest house. At night, we could see the lights twinkling in the army barracks all the way in Sikandrabad, Hyderabad's twin. Appa, they've started, said Zain, pointing at the sky. Catherine wheels pirouetted and spun on their axles. Rockets exploded like a burst of shooting stars and fell into the Hussain Sagar lake. Then the year 1947 arrived with the sound of popping, whistling, and crackling. Farishte and Zain were too young to be out on New Year's Eve, but the adults in the novel were ringing in the new year at the Sikandrabad Club. Perhaps the band that night played this song by Glenn Miller. Mr. Michael Ballum, the head music teacher, will now play In the Mood, a popular song from the 1940s. We would like to dedicate the song to the late Mr. Dennis Powell, who taught music here for 40 years. He ensured that every student either sang or played an instrument. That's me playing the recorder when I was in grade 5. So everyone can laugh now if they like at the photo. Thank you, Mr. Ballum. Today's date, the 17th of September, is one of great historical significance. In 1948, 77 years ago, the Indian Army was almost at Hyderabad's gates, and the Nizam's administration conceded defeat. Landmines hampered the progress of General Chaudhry's convoy, and he met General Edrus, commander of the Nizam's forces, only on the 18th of September. When I first wrote to Dr. Bali about my upcoming book, he might not have expected that a spectacle like this would ensue. I would like to thank him and Amrita ma'am for allowing me to hold my book launch here. A more perfect venue than this could not have existed. This building encapsulates Hyderabad's history and my own.
Thank you so much for those inspiring and insightful words. Now, to truly bring the world of the book to life, we have a special dramatic reading from the book. Our talented teachers turned actors, Priyesh Pal, Devnath Payan, and Amartya Bhaumik Tirtha, along with the background music by Michael Ballum, would like to take us directly into the heart of the story. Please welcome them. Thank you.
Bangalore Club, 1958. On the 18th of September, my jeep halted 5 miles outside Hyderabad on the Sikandrabad fork. It was between the 4th and 5th milestone on the Hyderabad Bombay Road, a virtual no man's land with nothing but brambles and boulders. And I never took my glares off that afternoon. They masked the devastation in my eyes. One of the first lessons a soldier learns in the army is to adopt a mask of composure under all circumstances. But when confronted with the most challenging of circumstances imaginable, I doubted my acting abilities. The mine roads had slowed the progress of General Chaudhary's convoy by 4 whole hours. However, the press, both international and national, who descended on Hyderabad en masse encountered no obstacle whatsoever. Like vultures preparing to feast on a cadaver, they crowded to lectern, waiting for me to speak. The men under my command were called to perform a superhuman task against very heavy odds. I had no alternative left but to ask them to surrender. All at once, a sea of hands shot up in the air. I scanned the badges on the men's hat. I'll answer the gentleman from the Free Press Journal.
General, is it true you will ride along General Chaudhary to the city in a vehicle belonging to the Indian Army?
Yes, that's correct. The gentleman from Time magazine, what's your question?
When and where will you hold the official surrender ceremony?
The reporter's name was Robert Luba. He later referred to police action as the shortest, happiest war. Later this evening, at Mr. Munshi's residence in Bolaram,
What do you have to say to the allegations of supplying arms to the Razakars?
would I be standing before you today if my men had a cornucopia of weapons? It's the game of life. We did our best. That's it. I won't be entertaining any further questions. Camera bulbs exploded in my face. I descended from the podium and strode over to the staff car where my driver and aide camp waited,
They are about 50 yards away.
said my aide camp, peering through his binoculars.
General Chaudhary halted his jeep when he saw our pennon.
Chaudhary's imposing figure drew close enough to view without binoculars. He was walking towards me. As I took the first step to meet my Indian counterpart, my heart splintered into 1,000 pieces. By the second, 40 years of military training must have kicked in. Lubar later told me my third stride became confident enough for a bystander to wonder which general was the victor. We gave each other a stiff salute and then shook hands.
On behalf of Lieutenant General Rajinder Singh Ji, Commanding Officer of South Indian Forces, I demand an unconditional surrender of the Hyderabad State Forces.
You have it.
Do you understand that you and all the troops of the Hyderabad Army now come under my command by the statutes vested in me by the GOCNC Southern Command?
Yes.
Let me introduce you to my group commanders.
I shook hands with all the commanders. I heard all their names but remembered none. The surrender terms call that I ride into the city Chaudhary's jeep When I climbed into that jeep, I felt 4 feet tall. As soon as it started moving, Chaudhary, now military governor of Hyderabad, offered me a cigarette and then started rattling off a list of instructions.
You are to clean up the Razakars. You have been committed to hold Hyderabad city. See, there is no trouble. You are to clear Bolaram and Secunderabad of any remaining troops before nightfall for one armed brigade. You are responsible for law and order in the state until the Indian Army is able to take over. You are to inform the Inspector General of Police to enforce the nighttime curfew. As long as you can prevent the eruption of communal violence, we will not detain you.
That was the first time in my 50-year-long career that I had taken orders from a contemporary. I presume you will intern me as soon as I am not useful to you anymore.
Definitely not. I am a man of honor, General Idrus, as are you.
As the jeep drove into Secunderabad cantonment area, a shower of rose petals doused us. Orange, white, and green fluttered on the trees, roads, buildings, and waving hands. The crowd grew vociferous.
Bharat Mata ki jai. Nehru Zindabad. Patel Zindabad. Congress ki hai hai.
I brushed off the rose petals intended for my companion, the hero of the hour, and remembered an ancient prophecy. 200 years ago, a mendicant named Inayat Shah had presented the first Nizam with a nazar, a humble bundle wrapped in yellow cloth. Asaf Jah the first gave the matter little thought and opened it after weeks. Inside was 7 kulchas or loaf of bread. Inayat Shah's strange gift puzzled the Nizam and he summoned him to his court. The mendicant refused the royal decree but declared his prophecy to a messenger. The Asaf Jahis would rule for 7 generations. But the fulfillment of the prophecy had fallen not on the Nizam or his sons. It had fallen on me, Sayyid Ahmad al-Idrus, the 7th Nizam's commander. I had let down my ruler and my people. Now, Madam Biographer, you may put down your pen. Whatever else I may tell you has to be off the record.
What a powerful performance. Thank you so much for that brilliant performance. Now, for the moment we've all been waiting for, the official book unveiling. May I please request our Head of International Curriculum, Ms. Sonali Roy Chaudhary Singh, and Dr. Neeta Bisht, our middle school coordinator, to escort our chief guest, Mr. Saad bin Jung, and our author, Ms. Zeenat, on stage for the unveiling of the Sirens of September. Thank you so much. It is now my pleasure to formally introduce our chief guest, Mr. Saad bin Jung. Mr. Jung comes from a royal families of Bhopal and Pataudi and is a former Indian cricketer. He played first class cricket from 1978 to 1984 before turning to his passion for wildlife and conservation. He was a member of the Wildlife Advisory Board of Karnataka and, along with his wife Sangeeta, runs eco resorts on the banks of the Kabini River, working to balance the needs of the local communities with conservation efforts. An accomplished writer, he is the author of Wild Tales from the Wild, Subhan and I, and the novel Matabelli Dawn. He is also a columnist for the Asian Age and the Deccan Chronicle. Please welcome Mr. Saad bin Jung to the stage for his address. Thank you.
Hello everyone, welcome. Brilliant book, Nawab Saab. Is there any way that I can have you over here with me so we can do a more of a question and answer, because I'd like you to answer it. I think what is very apparent with this meeting that I can see around us is that most of our families of people who are here have been through that horribly tumultuous time that happened in Hyderabad. No one knew what was happening. No one knew what the meaning of the Dominion of India was. No one knew what would happen to royalty, because remember, these were sovereign kings. The crown of England was gone. And now sovereign kings were asked to give up everything and give up all their powers and join democracy. Well, the Nizam of Hyderabad thought otherwise. He said, I am literally half of India. I'd like to go independent. And this book is about that era which took place. And personally, Nawab Sahab, Raunak Khan is here. Our families, especially my family in Begumpet, Vilayat Manzil, Begumpet, took a hit because Vilayat Manzil, which is now Country Club, my grandfather had died and my grandmother was alone, and Qasim Rizvi had given an ultimatum to auction our house. And the day that the auction was taking place, that day, General Chaudhary's tank came first to our house and said the auction will not take place anymore. And so we all of us, I think if actually all of us go back in time, we will all have some sort of story or the other. But the most important, the most difficult thing about writing a book of this sort is differentiating the facts, the truth, from all the lies and all the humbug that's gone on by the different political parties, by attacking the Nizam, by saying that Qasim Rizvi, whose man was Qasim Rizvi? Who put Qasim Rizvi? Why would the Nizam want Qasim Rizvi there when he had a General Idrus? So these are questions that I would like to put to the author, and apart from a couple of other questions which I find fascinating in a book, because even I've done a book like this, but I didn't have different protagonists. So should I speak to you from here, or can I sit down? Where do I sit? Will be this fascinating topic. Why did you choose this really tumultuous time in Hyderabad? Did you experience it yourself, or what?
No, I didn't really experience it myself, but when much later in life, I read a lot about the events that happened at the time. And I thought this was a story that begged to be told, because much of literature and cinema concentrates on India's partition. But very few people, even me growing up in Hyderabad, I didn't know this drama that unfolded here, and I didn't even realize how significant Hyderabad was as a state in those days. It was geographically the size of the UK, and Nizam was one of the world's richest men, so it was definitely something that needed to be explored, and not and in a sort of fictitious way, not as a non-fictional account.
Which is what makes this so fascinating, because I haven't understood my own school. Why didn't we teach this history? It makes no sense, because this is probably one of the most critical moments of the history of India, which was never taught to us, which should have been. because it was a creation of the state of Hyderabad, merging with the government of India. But you know what I find fascinating? What I find fascinating, Zeenat, is the fact that you took, and I want to know why you did this. You took the protagonist who's 15-year-old, who's got a completely different approach to that era, and you've got a very seasoned politician in General Idrus. So you've got two very different philosophies that are coming out in this. How did you think of that? It's so difficult.
So actually my protagonist Farishte, I conjured her up before I thought of the plot of my book. I knew that the story had to be told through her eyes. And the other major players of that era, they were all middle-aged men. And whether they admitted to themselves or not, in their hearts, they knew their time was up, that this was not going to last. And so I had this girl, Farishte, who's a teenager, and the world is still new for her. So at one side, just outside of Hyderabad's borders, India is gaining independence from the British. And on the other side, the Nizam was losing his kingdom. And I had Farishte witness this through a very innocent perspective. And yeah.
Right. So you had the whole issue of Farishte taking on different
Roles. Yes,
yeah.
she played interesting roles in
Yeah.
the book, yes.
So,
she became a pawn for the adults in more ways than one.
So what are you trying to tell us through the eyes of Farishte? How did she look at Hyderabad? When we read your book, what should we look for?
Farishte probably imbibed the environment of her time, that she grew up in this aristocratic world. So it was probably a moment of great insecurity to see that all shatter, to see that her family was then on the wrong side of and they were called into question and they got into trouble. So that is a very significant event for a young girl to witness.
True, and then you can see it from General Idrus's perspective also, because your book is talking about his perspective literally as much as Farishte's. So was that a plan of yours?
That was, I thought General Idrus has remained a very misunderstood character, but I think from my book I tried to explain that he didn't have a choice. He had his responsibility towards the Nizam, and he tried to present all this bluster, but from inside he knew that it was not happening. He was just pretending, but I think if he knew, and he was honest with himself.
But in the end, was the Nizam happy with General Idrus?
I think not.
So what are your views on the Nizam then?
I don't really want to comment on my views of the Nizam. I think everyone had to do what they had to do to find their place in the new order of things. And Nizam was already a very elderly gentleman at the time. General Idrus was in his 50s, and I think the Nizam must have been around 70, I'm not exactly sure. But he didn't have the energy for his world to change more than it already had.
But do you think if he was younger, he could have made a difference?
He could have if he had played his cards better. He didn't take the right advice, in my opinion.
You mean amalgamate with India in a better manner?
He should have, yeah.
So you think that the merger should have happened before and the police action should never have happened?
Probably. It would have been in everyone's best interest. The drama could have been avoided.
I agree. No, I've gone through it in Bhopal, so I know exactly what happened. And we signed the merger agreement much after the police action. We signed it in 49. But the question that I really want to ask you, and which you haven't really placed a lot of emphasis on in this book, is Qasim Rizvi. Now, what was the role of Qasim Rizvi and the Razakars in Hyderabad? Because there was no way it suited the Nizam to have them. Then why have them?
The point of the Razakars and Qasim Rizvi is very contentious. He remains a contentious character. So I didn't want my book really to focus on him too much. I didn't admire much about him as a person, nor what the Razakars did. So I kept them in the background. But actually the Razakars were first formed to combat the communists.
So you don't have an opinion on the Razakars in this book?
I do. They created a lot of trouble in my book too. And nobody has a great opinion of Qasim Rizvi in the novel either. Maybe I think he misled the Nizam. And he didn't take sounder advice.
So do you think that the Nizam actually got Qasim Rizvi into Hyderabad? Because I don't see the motive there. Or was he sent by the politicians from Delhi to create unrest so that the army could come in.
Somehow, Qasim Razvi made it to being president of the MIM, and then he created a lot of trouble which never existed in Hyderabad before his advent.
So it was obviously a ploy by the government.
I don't know. I can't comment because I
Okay.
haven't explored the Qasim Razvi angle that much.
No, but what is fascinating, and I think all of you would probably agree with me, is the fact that we've never thought about it before. And she's making us think about it, even though she's chosen not to take an opinion on Qasim Rizvi, but she has, in a way, on the Nizam, on Idrus, on General Chaudhary also, you have a very good opinion of him. And of course, of a young girl, 15-year-old girl, growing up in beautiful Hyderabad. You've also used some terminology which kind of pushed me back. I can't say it loudly, but I mean,
What was this
there
terminology?
there was one really
yes.
bad one.
Yes. But that happened. Those were the days, and those kind of things happened in aristocratic circles.
Okay.
And it was inevitable. With the
Well, thank you for
lifestyle.
this fascinating book, and I hope it's an eye-opener for, especially for my school and for my society and for India, that that era needs to be addressed. And thank you for addressing it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for the insightful speech and the very wonderful talk. I think it has helped us all get a little glimpse of what the book is really about. I now request our middle school coordinator, Mr. K. Ravi, sir, to escort our chief guest and offer a token of gratitude to him, a little sapling and a memento from the school.
May I also invite Mr. Aditya Reddy on the stage, please, presenting the sapling on behalf of the board.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir. We've had a truly captivating glimpse into the world of the Sirens of September, and I'd like to continue the conversation that sir and ma'am were just having. So now we have the unique opportunity to dive a little deeper. I'm delighted to welcome our author, Ms. Zeenat Khan, once again on the stage for a little Q&A session. Zeenat ma'am, thank you so much for joining us here today. It's a
Thank
pleasure
you.
to have you.
Thank you, Ms. Ahmed.
Yeah. This book is a labor of your love, and we're all very curious about its journey. Let's start with the big one. The title is incredibly captivating. How did you decide to name the book The Sirens of September?
So, over the many years that I've been writing the book, I have had conversations with many now who are senior citizens who were children at the time of police action and remember the events. So, one gentleman told me that in the early morning, pre-dawn hours, in fact, of September 13th, 1948, they were awoken by blaring sirens. And that's how they knew that the Indian army had invaded. So if you see my book, The Sirens, that was the idea. So I'm going to read a passage from my book. And this passage finds Farishte on the morning of September 14th. The trumpet of doomsday blew straight into my ears. In a matter of seconds, a terrible wailing engulfed our home from all directions. My bedside lamp wouldn't turn on when I tugged the cord. I tiptoed between the long shadows cast by my bed and dressing table. When I drew my curtains and peered down at the city, it was pitch dark for miles and miles. Hyderabad was under a complete blackout. The Indian army had invaded.
Thank you, ma'am. What was the spark, the initial inspiration that made you say, this is the story I want to say?
The spark, in fact, my daughter was doing her bachelor's and she did her bachelor's in history, world history. And she kept getting these books home about Hyderabad's accession to India. And I kept reading them and I found them very fascinating. And I thought there's so much of drama, there's suspense, there's so much that would go into making a great novel. So I was like, this has to be told in a fictitious manner.
Your novel has a very powerful sense of perspective. It feels intimate, yet expansive. Can you talk about your decision to use multiple points of views and how you chose the characters whose eyes we see the story through?
So I think given that everyone knew that Hyderabad was like going to collapse, tell the entire story through the point of view of middle-aged men would have been too heavy. So I think telling it from a teenage girl's perspective made it a bit fresher, perhaps. It provided a fresher perspective. But given the era, the late 1940s, and given the place, there was no way a young girl could have been everywhere because historically women don't always have that much of agency. So that's why I weaved in the character of General Edrus, who's the ultimate insider, and Darius, who was the ultimate outsider, who Mr. Binjang just pointed out as the other element which has not been discussed, the character of Darius, who was both an outsider and disdainful of what was happening.
Right. As readers, we often fall in love with certain characters. As a writer, you live with them for years. Who is your favorite character from the novel? And why do they hold such a special place in your heart?
Farishte is probably the most likable character in my novel because none of the adults are likable, in my opinion. And she's also the emotional anchor. But I have to confess that I enjoyed writing Darius' scenes because he was cruel, but he saw the world for people as they truly were and even displayed some noble qualities at times.
The historical detail in this book is incredible. It's clear that a lot of research went into it. Can you please share what your sources were, from historical archives to personal stories? What did you use to bring the story to life, that period of the time to life?
So I researched memoirs, biographies, historical accounts, newspapers printed in Bombay and Hyderabad between the years 1946 to 48, video clips on Pathe and YouTube, and also first-person narratives from people who were children at that time.
There's a beautiful melancholy woven into the story. An underlying sense of loss is what our readers would feel when they read the book. Was it your purpose to evoke this feeling throughout the novel? And if so, what were you trying to exactly say through the story?
So I was trying to evoke a sense of nostalgia, and I think human beings, we all feel nostalgia for the past, whether it's usually the distant past. And this is a past that none of us have really lived, but I wanted to recreate the lives of Hyderabad's elite when it was a sovereign state and evoke that sense of longing maybe for that lost world of nobility and privilege, even though it had its drawbacks and they were short-sighted and they didn't really plan well for themselves. But maybe the way I see it is my book is just a journey into those 2 years before and after police action.
The Sirens of September is a novel of stunning contrasts. As I mentioned in the description, it goes from the palaces of princely Hyderabad to the streets of London's Piccadilly. Could you give us some details about the themes of the contrasts and how you used them to shape the characters of the story?
So while Farishte is the protagonist and it's somewhat a coming-of-age novel, it also coincides the birth of an independent India and the death of Hyderabad as a sovereign state. And then I have Farishte's youthful idealism contrasting with General Edrus's battle weariness and Darius's cruel cynicism.
Thank you so much. Another thing that I've noticed is that the novel avoids portraying one side as simply good and another as evil. Why was it important for you to present this historical event without a clear moral binary?
So it's my hope that whoever reads the book doesn't view as any one side as good or bad. It's just how people deal with certain situations when they're in them. And I also wanted to portray how historical quakes can cause ripples in people's personal lives.
Writing a book is a marathon. It takes a lot. It's not a sprint. Could you tell us how long it took for you to write this?
I'm not embarrassed to say it took me 8 years and multiple versions and edits, and yeah, it took a lot of research.
I'm sure everyone's going to love it.
I hope so.
Thank you so much, Zeenat ma'am. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yes. I would like to thank Ms. Nasreen for coordinating the entire program, Ms. Amin for directing us all, Mr. Michael for the music, and Mr. Priyesh, Mr. Devnath, please raise your hands, and Mr. Amartya for playing the roles of the generals and the reporters. And a big thank you to Mr. Saad bin Jung for flying out to Hyderabad to grace this occasion. And lastly, thank you to everyone who supported me in my writing journey and for taking the trouble to be here today. I hope you will all enjoy the Sirens of September. Maybe Mr. Saad bin Jung say something.
Thank you so much, sir.
Please, a few words.
As our program comes to a close, I'd like to extend a heartfelt thank you to everyone who made this event a resounding success. First and foremost, a massive thank you to our author, Ms. Zeenat Khan, for sharing her beautiful work with us. Thank you to our chief guest, Mr. Saad bin Jung, for gracing us with his presence and wisdom. We are incredibly grateful to our head senior school, Dr. Neeta Bisht, our middle school coordinator, Mr. Ravi K., our head of international curriculum, Ms. Sonali Roy Chaudhary Singh, for her continued support. I would also like to thank our academic coordinator, Ms. Nasreen Fazal Khan, who organized this entire event from the start to finish. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you to our talented teachers, Priyesh sir, Devnath sir, and Amartya sir, for the reading. Thank you so much, Michael sir, for that wonderful music that added so much depth to the evening today. We'd also like to acknowledge Colonel Sharma and his hardworking staff who took care of the logistics and meticulously set up this beautiful venue, the Shaheen. It holds a lot of history, and we thank you for that. And finally, thank you all of you to our wonderful esteemed guests, our students who joined us this evening, and of course, their families who stayed back. Thank you so much for being a part of the celebration, everyone. The event officially concludes. The book sale and signing will take place on the right side of the hall. Our author, Ms. Zeenat Khan, will be seated there to sign your copies and have a word with you. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.